Fantastic here, aka the Hot Shot, aka the Pretty Villain, and we're back for part 2 of episode 3 of Catch Digest CJI, a wrestler's perspective. And we're going to be discussing the runner-ups. We're going to be discussing some more controversy, which I felt like may have been some inconsistencies in the judging, which we'll discuss in a moment. But first, let's go back to what we already discussed. We discussed the winners. We discussed the rule set. We discussed the action that already seems way better than what we're seeing in ADCC and a lot of the other rule sets. We saw Nikki Rodriguez, an NCAA Division III wrestler, win the 88 and above, 88 kilograms, I don't know, kilograms, what is that? And above category. We saw the 88 below 88 kilograms won by Cade Rotullo, who's training with Eric Paulson, a legendary catch wrestler. And now we're already in a place of wrestling has affected grappling. There are wrestlers and wrestling influence winners at the top of their brackets. Okay, we're also seeing that maybe this bias against wrestlers that has existed in the past, at least in the time that I was coming up. I know I look a little young, but I am in my 30s. Why am I not saying my age? I'm 35. And we are going back to a time when I was younger where, and I came from wrestling in the public school system here in America. There was a lot of, I don't want to say derision, but you were kind of told to repress your wrestling and embrace the jiu-jitsu way. And some people liked it. Some people didn't give up their wrestling and they got shit for it. I was one of those guys. And I think it's getting a little bit different. You know, I understand that there's those random wrestlers who left high school or college wrestling, they're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and they come in there, maybe a chip on their shoulder, and they just spaz out. I mean, we've all dealt with them. And in fact, some of us have been them at one time. I don't think that necessarily is indicative of a general problem. And I don't think that the aggressiveness of wrestling is a problem. Rather, there is some, just, once again, untaught things to the amateur wrestler that have been lost to time, but were originally a part of the system created. Amateur wrestling, folk style, freestyle, that's based on catch wrestling. It's amateur catch wrestling. Later on, it was turned to freestyle wrestling in the Olympics. It used to be called amateur catch wrestling, and in high school, it became folk style, but its roots is catch wrestling. So we're not only are we pointing to that from what we see in the wrestling world, we're also seeing in the reverse side. BJJ is influenced by catch wrestling, not just today, not just through the amateur wrestlers, but from its very inception with Mitsu Maeda and Kimura. Both professional wrestlers who trained with catch wrestlers. They had a hybrid style. And guys, if you guys watch my Reddit cesspool series here on the same channel, if you just see me discuss martial arts is an accruement of knowledge, like a style, okay? Each style is an accruement of the creators, the teachers. It's a accruement of their knowledge, their strategies, their dogmas, their whatever they've got going on and they've put into a system, that's theirs. But we have to understand that martial arts isn't A and then plus B. It's A plus B plus C plus D from, and these letters aren't just, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and it's American catch wrestling, or it's British catch wrestling. It's from the people, the practitioners, the teachers. They personally influence the styles of people and the actual art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it's something lost in time. George Gracie, look him up. Who is that? You can look this up. Catch wrestlers discuss this all the time. I'm happy to discuss it, obviously. But what we see in wrestling has always been, but I'm just trying to highlight it right now in the CJI. So, discussing all this is important to keep the sport going forward. And CJI has done some great things, but it's also done some things that I didn't like, and the competitors that I wanted to see when they did some things I loved and some things that I didn't like. And we're to discuss those things, how we can improve CJI and the wrestling competitors and make this sport even better than it is today. The first highlight that I want to bring up, and I'm bringing them up in a particular order for a particular reason, so trust me, follow along, is Pat Downey. Pat Downey, what a run representing fight sports. That's Cyborg and Wagner Rocha or Hoka martial arts. He was doing amazing. His wrestling, very crispy clean. His top game looking great. Okay? Soundly beat Luke. Go back, watch that match. Totally, Pat Downey's totally wrecked him. I don't know what was going through. Luke is the awkward ninja. That's what I call him. Sometimes he comes in, he does this awkward thing where he wins and he just looks spectacular. And sometimes he comes in there and he looks so overconfident and then absolutely doesn't do as good as what I thought he would. And sometimes he's a comic book character. You know, he may lose, but he's looking good doing it. So it's awkward ninja. That's the best compliment I could probably give that guy. Soundly beat by our boy Pat Downey. The trouble starts in the second match with Adam Bradley. Okay? Arguably, Pat Downey won that match. Okay? He won the first round. He won round 1 on the cards. Round 2, the announcers, the crowd, and Pat Downey himself all had him winning that. I had him winning that round. They give it to Adam Bradley. I don't know why.
And interestingly, Adam Bradley has taken that round across the board with the judges, perhaps for being the one trying to actually initiate the grappling techniques. I don't know. That's a tough one, guys.
I don't agree with that.
I do not agree with that. Bradley trying to cut an angle, but it's his insistence on choosing the closed guard as his route of attack that's really giving him, he's making his own problems.
Yeah, I mean, you can rock that pendulum all you want, but
something that I discussed in the first video that I'll only harp on maybe 45 seconds here. Best to keep this short. Adam Bradley is pulling guard on the bottom. He's playing closed guard. You can't attack from closed guard. You have to open your guard, then you can attack. Very few things you can do from closed guard, and it's something that you might do against somebody that's very green, doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. But in this case, Pat Downey has been training with Cyborg, Wagner Rocha. The announcer mentioned that he was training with Kamzat in Abu Dhabi, with the Chechens and the Dagestanis for like 2 months. So his game really did level up. He did a great job. First round, he threw a Mark Schultz headlock choke. Very cool. Very cool. Mark Schultz, I think, got that in submission in the UFC. I don't know if I can even put that on screen without that being a problem. Thanks, UFC, for fucking... Anyway. Arguably won the match. So round 1, judges agree. He won that round. Round 2, everybody thinks it's pretty much the same thing. Adam Bradley didn't initiate anything. It was Pat Downey on top. And maybe I'll take, I think I didn't take the whole 45 seconds here. But he's pulling guard. He's just touching and hitting the ground. He's not initiating anything like that. Pat Downey enters his guard, initiates the action. How is he not initiating the action and controlling the match by doing so? He was doing a good job of trying to pass the legs. He got very, very close. This is going against Adam Bradley, who went to the quarterfinals, or rather the semifinals, right? So we see this cycle happen. Okay, Adam Bradley sits down to his ass. Pat Downey enters his guard. Adam, to stop him from passing, closes his guard. And there's like a up and down battle. In the third round, Pat Downey initiated the takedown. Pat Downey's initiating everything. Round 2 goes to Bradley. Everybody else thinks differently. I think differently. It seems like the judging criteria from one to the next round changed. And I don't know what you want Pat Downey to do more other than engage with his guard, as Adam Bradley plays a completely defensive games with all of his limbs facing upward. What you could tell fucking Adam Bradley to wrestle instead of going to his ass. That's boring. And I've watched this match 2.5 times now, and I don't understand the justification from the change of the judging of the first round to the second and third round. See, the biggest change I saw, or rather heard, was Adam Bradley's corner saying, he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything.
He's not doing anything.
Corner really pushing, making sure that they're in these judges' ears.
Whenever he holds like that,
They're screaming, Pat Downey's not doing anything.
I mean,
we're hearing it over and over.
come on, he's not doing anything.
So I don't think Pat Downey's moving an inch there.
What do you want him to do? He's trying to pass. Adam Bradley is keeping his legs closed. He is not trying to advance his position via a sweep or an attack. The one time he does, in response to Pat Downey trying to pass him and engage his guard, Pat Downey grabs a head and arm, stopping the flower sweep, which is a basic day one sweep. You go to the armbar from there. Especially in gi jiu-jitsu, you'll learn this one very early on. Nonetheless, he's not really doing anything. It's like a Shido. It's just like a fake. It's a feint attack to look like I'm actually trying to do something in the judge's eyes. Adam Bradley isn't doing anything to try to finish this match. He has literally conceded that point by trying, by sitting down and playing open guard just like this. Oh, you have to come down and engage me. Pat Downey did a good job of showing high level engagement and passing. I'm not even a crazy Pat Downey fan. I'm a fan of wrestlers. I'm looking at the judging criteria. The announcers, who are also high level jiu-jitsu practitioners and coaches, are having the same bewilderment. And then we get to round 3, which is a split decision. One person gives it to Pat Downey, 2 give it to Adam Bradley. Wish they had a sudden death round like Karate Combat. Unfortunately, they don't. And if it went to a draw, it would go to the winner of the third round, which I guess went to Adam Bradley. Pat Downey, in my opinion, deserved that match. And that judging in the first round is what I imagined the judging to be across the board, because of what we went through in the rules, discussing what is stalling, which is not engaging. It is only the person standing that's engaging. Scooting at a person's not engaging them. They have to come down and wrestle you for grappling. In any other place, they sakurabe you. They just wait for the ref to stand you up. If it was in real life, we would all just laugh at you and pants you or something. This is not something that is not to take lightly in a fight scenario. Somebody for their back with their legs pointed at you, able to just donkey kick you in the face. No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is this isn't in good faith attempt at being aggressive and trying to finish the match. It is simply sitting to your ass. Pat Downey did a great job. Wasn't submitted by high-level jiu-jitsu players. Beat Luke Rockhold soundly. I think that's one of the great storylines behind this whole thing. And I didn't even know he was training at all those places. It's freaking crazy. Pat Downey, absolute beast. The Lizard King or whatever. I thought that was that guy from the Doors. And I don't know why the Lizard King. Why, you know what I mean? Why the lizard? Why is that about? I haven't looked that up. I think Pat Downey's just a cool fella, and I think that he could have gone all the way. I don't know how that would have been with Nicky Rod, but it would have been a hell of a match. I would love that match way better than what we saw with him versus Adam Bradley. Almost forgot his name already. Post mortem that match, crowd booed.
Scores the bout 29-28 in favor of the red corner, Adam Bradley. Moving on to day 2.
Pat Downey and a good portion of the crowd here disagree with that decision.
Adam Bradley apologized.
I was hoping to get underneath him more and get more action going, but historically I have a hard time with that style. I don't know. Wasn't the most fun match. I'm pretty upset with that.
I think what won him that match is his corner saying he's not doing anything. He's not doing it. I really think that was a very key factor in that match. So I'm going to move on from Pat Downey onto Daniel Kirkliet. As I said, this guy's a dude, absolute athletic monster. Totally could see him go really far in any grappling tournament because he's current reigning Division 1, NCAA Division 1, 285, that's heavyweight champion. Analyzing what happened in the match, the reason why I wanted to go into so much detail in the Pat Downey match was because of that round 1 decision for Pat Downey. If they were being consistent with their judging, once again, then Daniel Kirkliet would have won that first lap round. Okay? Daniel Kirkliet is the one initiating everything, entering the guard, putting the pressure on, trying to pass, and he was actually doing a good job. Yeah, there was even some sparks of, oh wow, he's trying to J-point camp, which is some high-level jiu-jitsu position, which is, anyone can do. Anyone can do J-point camping. It's not like we all have the same number of limbs and legs. God bless you if you don't. I'm talking about the general rung of people. And you can basically camp this position for a little bit here, forcing a reaction to get into a pass, attack a leg, run, while also being aggressive and wearing down your opponent. Okay, it's better position than being in front of the legs, like just trying to be directly in front of a person. You've actually passed to the side. Anyway, the J stands for jeopardy. So it's at the point where you're in jeopardy and you must do something to retain your guard. Anyway, beyond the grappling nerd talk, Kirkliet did a great job. I was blown away by how well he did. He lost, unfortunately, ultimately to world champion Felipe Andrews, who was the eventual CJI finalist against Nicky Rod. He once again played a very heavy guard game on the bottom. The judging needs to be a little bit more consistent. I think that the game of the people sitting down is really not a way of saying, hey, I'm being aggressive. I think you concede that idea of I'm being aggressive. Unless, obviously, there's exceptions to the rule. People who are actually trying to grab a person and pull underneath them. Adam Bradley did that like once or twice. He should have been doing more of that. He should have been trying to gain different contact points. He was going for the same thing, which was not going anywhere. He was closing his guard. He was not opening up to try to do anything. And instead of awarding that to Pat Downey, his respect and his nullified game to Pat Downey, who was attacking on top, controlling everything, they gave it to Adam Bradley. Switching over here to the Felipe Andrews situation, we see more attacks from Felipe Andrews, but it's all in response to Vliet initiating action, trying to pass. And he just throws up the legs, and it's like, oh, wow. But he was never in any real trouble except maybe one time when he had the back, and Vliet did a great job of defending the back, and that was the 3rd round.
These accumulated attacks, these entries, they're not real submission threats.
In round 1, 2, it could have gone either way, and Vliet, in my opinion, won round 1. Round 2, maybe with the attempts, there was a couple of way more attempts, and there may have been a sweep in there that was pretty good from Felipe Andrews. But let me say that the crowd literally boos in round 3. So when Felipe Andrews sits down and pulls guard. Okay, so
I have to say I'm surprised that Andrew has not pulled yet. He's playing with fire a little bit, perhaps, on the feet.
Well, he's got a little room to move and take some risk here.
There's the guard pole. The crowd letting him know that.
The crowd like, oh, come on.
It's not just me, it's the crowd, it's everyone, and the judging. If Vliet got that first round and they were being more consistent with their judging, maybe Vliet may have tried different things, maybe, I don't know, opened up and tried to win, been more aggressive in round 2 or 3. You know, who can say there? But the Pat Downey situation is way more clear, and that's why I led with it. It seemed like every one of those rounds, especially round 1 and 2, should have been given to Downey in that Adam Bradley match, and someone gave it to him in round 3. So I gave it to him, and I gave him all 3 rounds. So I don't understand the judging, and it's a little bit inconsistent. And just, once again, logically speaking, if you sit down to your ass, I think that you're giving up your claim to be aggressive and trying to finish the match. The other person has to try and finish your match, and then off of your countering that initiation, you can capitalize and use the opportunity to finish them, which is, you know, having a counter style isn't necessarily bad, but you don't get to say, I win the round when the judging criteria is aggression and control. And among them is serious submission attempts, but also dynamic actions. And I would say that the initiator, the control, the dynamic action would be going to people like Daniel Vliet and Pat Downey in their matches. I will say this one highlight, and then we'll move on. Daniel Vliet did not get submitted by the world gi champion. Take that home and remember that. So next is fellow Nittany Lion Wrestling Club product and representative is Jason Nolf. Okay, had an amazing match with Ty. Had an amazing match. Like, everybody's talking about Andrew Tackett and Cade Rotullo. Why isn't anyone talking about Jason Nolf, Ty Rotullo? What a great match. Unfortunately, Ty got hurt in the next match with his opponent, and he didn't get to give it as much as he could have. C'est la vie, they say. They say in some foreign language. It's French. And they forget that that amazing match happened in that first round. Jason Nolf, absolute beast of a wrestler, versus Ty Rotullo, also being trained under Eric Paulson, a catch wrestler. And we always imagined that jiu-jitsu guys are going to pull the guard. No, Ty went in there and he went ramming those clubbing collar ties in there. He was not playing any games. He wrestled Jason Nolf, and it was pretty good. He won. It's amazing. Worth going. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going onto the wrong half of the screen. It is worth going back and watching. It goes to the very end, almost all the way to decision. Spoiler alert for those who didn't watch this and don't already know. Rotullo wins by a submission at the end of the third round. Great match, worth watching. Definitely exciting, back and forth action, And I think that the wrestling guys just need a little bit more. And I think they obviously require more consistent judging in the cases of Kirk Vliet and Pat Downey. And they're going to be winning these tournaments in the CJI brackets. They just a little bit more submission wrestling, just a little bit more, and they're friggin' there. Kirk Vliet could have done better, but he's going against not the best dance partner who's just pulling guard, but he was going for it. Made Felipe Andrews take off his shirt, no homo. And it was just honestly great matches from wrestlers that we don't see in grappling tournaments like we used to see back in the day in ADCC. But even back then, because there was not a lot of cross training, there was some boring matches back then too. So we're trying to make things more exciting, not only for the viewer, but for people competing, you know what I mean? And sometimes that includes putting on the pressure. The last grappler and wrestling prospect that I highlighted in my video breaking down the brackets of CJI was Owen Livesey. And Owen Livesey is a catch wrestler, a judoka, a BJJ martial artist. I'm still trying to get a jiu-jitsu terra. I don't know what the best name for a Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist is. So anyway, Owen Livesey, he's a catch wrestler. He's a catch wrestling world champion in 2022 over at the Snake Pit Wigan World Championships. He won the heavyweight category. The next year he beat Josh Barnett. He already took Nicky Rod to a draw in quintet, which I mentioned. And he was able to nullify Nicky Rod. I thought that he might be able to maybe overcome him if he was playing a different game, which is what the post interview of Owen Livesey's first match actually alluded to. First, speaking of the first match, he beat Muhammad Ali. Not that Muhammad Ali, but Muhammad Ali is a competitor in the over 88 kilograms. I believe he's also a world champ in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Absolute behemoth of a man. I think he was the largest competitor, if I'm not mistaken. Owen Livesey beat him. It was a great match, very quick. He lost to Nicky Rod in the next round, who was the eventual winner of CJI, as we discussed, a fellow wrestler himself, but training out of the jiu-jitsu and amateur wrestling wing of things. And I believe that whole match was explosive, worth watching, but not what I expected to happen. I have to think about my breaking it down, because I've watched it and I'm just looking at what's happening and I'm like, what am I seeing here? Other than the guy that I wanted to win losing, maybe that's why it's so hard to. But I wasn't sure where particularly Owen Livesey was losing. I thought it was kind of Nicky Ryan being just a half step a little bit faster on what was going on. And I don't know else how to express it, because the match could have been absolute fireworks, and in some ways it did deliver on that, but I thought it was going to go farther, because he was able to nullify him so long. But maybe when you change up your tactics like that, maybe that affects, as we saw, the results to a much greater degree than I had anticipated. Nonetheless, Owen Livesey, he won his first match, and he lost to the eventual winner. So I still think that there's a lot to be seen out of this guy who's competing in the catch wrestling championships, which I really appreciate. I think that's really cool. So going back, just a little summary of everything else. We got Cade Rotullo, Eric Paulson, student, who is Eric Paulson, a catch wrestling legend. We've got Nicky Rod, NCAA Division III wrestler. Obviously, amateur wrestling in America is amateur catch wrestling. We have Lucas Cainard, who is wrestling out of the Sydney Wrestling Club. I didn't really get to mention him too much, so these are more like highlights of what's going on in the tournament. He didn't do any wrestling, and he said so that he was not going to do any wrestling. He said that the name was kind of ironic because he wasn't going to do any wrestling. Needless to say, hey, he's in a wrestling club. Biggest upset of the tournament. He beat Victor Hugo with a heel hook in the first round. Victor Hugo was the first seed of his bracket, so it was possibly one of the biggest upsets ever in BJJ. Did not see that coming. Dude's like a last-minute replacement for, I think, Mason Fowler. So that was absolutely nuts. Lucas Cainard, remember the name, coming out of a wrestling club. At least that's kind of cool. I know there's some catch wrestling people out there in the Australia. You got Kimura, Robert Kimura, I think his name, or what's his name? No, that's not his first name. I forget his name, but he goes by Kimura, and he's got a win over Robert Whitaker in an ADCC match. Pretty cool. Everybody was talking about this, and it's worth watching now that I mention it, is the Cade Ratula versus Andrew Tackett match. One of the best matches that happened that night. Everybody was saying this is one of the greatest matches of all time. Maybe it is. Who knows? Go watch it. CJI is doing stuff. They're putting all this stuff free online. Take advantage of it now to study it, to enjoy it, to be engaged in the sport, spread it around, see what happens. I appreciate everyone watching this video and this breakdown and analysis all the way through. And I thank my wrestlers for going out there representing, especially Owen Livesey. He's like literally, I'm a catch wrestler. So that's pretty cool too, guys. So if you guys aren't giving him his credit, those guys that are watching right now that are catch wrestlers, they need to give credit to where it's due. And Owen Livesey is literally saying he's a catch wrestler. And there needs to be more people carrying that name in the higher ranks, and a lot of them, and rather maybe all of them, are in some way carrying on catch wrestling in their lineage. So I think it's all an interesting analysis. I hope for guys that are looking for wrestling stuff, wrestling oriented things, breakdown, that type of thing. CJI, from a wrestler's perspective, thank you for watching. Stay up, stay vigilant, stay locked and loaded. Shalom, shalom, peace in y'all.